Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Blue Collar DM, the channel dedicated to breaking down barriers for new players and dungeon masters alike. My name is Howard, and today we're going to be talking about taking your Dungeons & Dragons home game from the gaming table online. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, today's episode is actually prompted by some really bad circumstances. The COVID-19 epidemic, obviously ravaging the world, has caused a lot of issues for people, and I really hope everyone's quarantining and staying safe in their homes and protecting themselves, and I hope everybody, including you and your family, are staying as healthy as possible during this virus. Now, with that said, I know a lot of newer players and DMs and even veteran players are looking to take their games online because obviously this game can provide a positive outlet and some escapism for everyone as we're kind of dealing with this as a society. Because of this, I wanted to kind of help everyone out and kind of give everyone just kind of some information on some of the different resources that they can use. This video is going to kind of go through 3 different tiers of ways you can play online. Tier 1 being the lowest barrier to playing, the kind of the easiest free way you can kind of get into the game. Tier 2 being a little bit more complicated with some still free resources, and then Tier 3 if you decide that you want to take your game to that next level in online play and really kind of have like a very huge, awesome experience, kind of like what you have at your home table, but it's just in an online format instead. If you have any questions as we're going through this, make sure you leave a comment down here in the comment section below. I'm sure you guys will, and like I said, I'm going to kind of go over a brief overview of the different tiers in this video. So again, any questions you have, make sure you leave comments. Also subscribe and hit that notification bell because I'm probably going to answer some of those questions in a future video. Also, I'm thinking about doing a live stream on either Twitch or on YouTube. If you want to see some of that, make sure you leave a comment as well. It'll serve as a way to just be a good resource and a good dialogue for me to you guys, if just so I can answer any of your questions that you'd rather ask in person, or if you want more information on how to play your game online, or if you need help with campaign building, whatever the case may be. Again, leave a comment down there so I know that's something that you guys are interested in. Okay, so now let's get going with the rest of the video. So let's talk Tier 1. Tier 1 is going to kind of be your lowest barrier. So basically what Tier 1 is just basically using a couple different tools to actually have voice conversations via an online platform via your computer. You still play the game basically on pencil and paper, and you still have your own dice, but you basically are just using an interface to actually help you play your game. Now, the only tricky part with this is that if you're going to be doing combat, it's going to have to be in theater of the mind, which if you're a DM, my recommendation, use 30-foot increments because most creatures and players can move 30 feet to give yourself an idea of how the battlefield lays out. Just say that, like, if a character can get to you in one move, just say, hey, you're about 30 feet away from this monster. Or if they need a sprint or dash, then, hey, you're 60 feet away from this monster. Just makes it kind of easier for you. Some of the different interfaces that you can actually use while you're playing this style of game are actually going to be Zoom and Discord. Now, Discord's nice because it does enable you to kind of have a chat box and a chat window. You can actually use voice in Discord. The only thing that Discord's not great at is a video, so that's why I also recommend Zoom. I know Zoom's had some security issues lately with the amount of people that are kind of flocking to Zoom. They have done a pretty good job of trying to rectify some of those security issues, but also the fact that we're playing Dungeons & Dragons via Zoom. We're not really, unless you really care about those types of things, and take that into consideration. Also, just make a really unique password that doesn't actually get used everywhere, because I know a lot of you probably use the same password for everything. Make a unique password for Zoom, so that way if someone does end up hacking into your Zoom, they don't just then know your password for everything. Make sense? That's what I thought. The other cool thing about Zoom is that you actually do have the ability to screen share. So some of the things that we're going to talk about in a little bit in Tier 2 actually kind of apply to here, but say if you want to show some artwork, or you like have a description of a building or something like that, or you want to provide some sort of visualization, you can do that via Zoom. Also with having the video so you can see your players, but then you also have a little chat window as well, so you can actually message your players if there's like a certain information that you want to share that you'd rather not speak out, like maybe the description of a magic item or something like that. Zoom does a pretty good job, and I've used it myself in some of my home games, and I've had a very good experience so far with that platform. Again, combat can be a little difficult to kind of manage, like I said, with the different spacing and stuff like that, but especially when there's more monsters involved. But the important thing is that you just want to make sure that you track everything down as best you can on a piece of paper. Kind of keep that mindset of like, okay, how far away are these are these monsters going to be 2 turns away, or are they going to be 1 turn away, just so you can determine spacing on the battlefield. All right, so let's talk Tier 2. Now, Tier 2 kind of solves some of the issues that we have in Tier 1. Basically, we're going to be using some of these web-based applications that kind of enable kind of a tabletop simulation that allow us to actually have game maps and actually be able to utilize those resources. And one of the biggest ones that are, at least one of the biggest free resources out there, is actually Roll20. Now, there are some paid things that you can do in Roll20, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But the best benefit about Roll20 is that it does allow you to actually build out maps. And you can make tokens and stuff like that, so you can actually position your monsters and stuff on the battlefield. It just makes life easier. If you actually want to go into a real deep dive into it, you can actually create your own character sheets for your players on Roll20. That is also still free to use, and you can actually utilize their dice rolling feature that they have in there with their chat box and stuff like that. It's a really great interface, and like I said, you can now use maps, so you can then determine where things are in the battlefield. To make tokens, the only thing you really need to do is just kind of import some artwork. Now, if you are thinking about live streaming your game via Twitch or something like that, you want to make sure that you actually own those tokens. You can't just like rip a image off of Google Images and then play with that and then broadcast it. You actually do need to own the image. Makes sense. It's kind of the same thing with copyrights on music and stuff like that, which I'm sure a lot of you have dealt with if you are a Twitch streamer. Now, the best thing about it is that this free version of Roll20 does actually include the D&D 5th edition standard rules document, which I'll leave a link down in the description below. I'll also leave descriptions for anything that I've mentioned down in the description below if I haven't mentioned that already. But it includes the standard rules document, which means that a lot of the basic spells and like general classes are already in there for you to use, which makes life a little bit easier, because then some of these character sheets can be built out and you can actually drag and drop a lot of these things in, and you can actually it just makes, instead of having to type everything out in the character sheet, you can actually drag everything over to the sheet and it'll populate for you, which is really cool. Now, with all that being said, Roll20 does have a video chat and a voice option. I actually would recommend you actually still use Zoom or Discord if you're planning on doing any voice or video, just because the Roll20 interface is under so much load, just loading in maps and all this data for that also managing video and stuff like that, it tends to lag behind and it'll often drop a lot of those video conferencing signals. So I still recommend using an external application like a Zoom or a Discord, just so that way you can still do voice chat and stuff like that. All right, so now let's talk Tier 3. Now, Tier 3 is basically kind of the level that if you want to put some money down and really kind of enhance your experience online to make it feel as close to the home game version as possible. Now, the two major players here are going to be Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds. The reason why I didn't talk about Fantasy Grounds before is because to really kind of get the most out of that utility, you do have to pay a monthly subscription for it. But like I said, this is Tier 3. We're going to be throwing down money. We might as well. Now, with Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds, both have the options to actually purchase a lot of the rights to the different rule sets and the different game titles, like your different kind of modules and stuff like that. Now, the thing is that you do have to purchase them. Currently, as it stands, you can't actually use your hard copy books like the ones over here and port them in. There is no like kind of proof of purchase code or anything like that. So you do have to repurchase these things if you want to have that in your interface. But the benefit of having these things in those interfaces is that you can actually, kind of like what we talked on Roll20, you can drag and drop everything into everywhere that needs to go. Like say if you have the Monster Manual or Volo's Guide to Monsters, you can just drag that monster from Volo's and throw it on the map, and it's there, and it has its stats, and it has its hit points and everything like that. So it makes it really nice and simple. It also will have its stat block. Again, very nice and simple, and it basically allows you to kind of run your game as expedited as possible without having to do a ton of work as a DM on the back end. Now, with say Roll20 or even Fantasy Grounds, you can like type in and make your own custom monsters and do all that, and you could do this for every single thing. But again, time is going to be your biggest factor here. So depending on how you want to do this, it can be beneficial. And again, like I said, this is Tier 3. We're going to be throwing money down. Might as well buy these books at the same time. So like I said, in most cases, you're gonna have to repurchase all of these books if you have them already, which kind of stinks, but you can share this content with your players. So for example, if you have Sword Coast Adventures Guide that you purchased on Fantasy Grounds, you can actually share that information with your players. So that way, if they wanna kind of add any of their backgrounds or anything like that from the Sword Coast Adventures Guide, they'll have that ability to drag and drop into their character sheet. So not everyone has to buy all the books all over again, which is really good. Now, there is a limit on how many people you can share this with and how many campaigns, so you'll want to take a look at that. I'll leave links to both Fantasy Grounds and Roll20 down in the description below so you can see what works best for you. But like I said, This tier 3 is kind of like the penultimate, like, I'm going to drop a ton of money because I want to have as close of an experience to my home game as possible. And with these resources, you can actually do that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to wrap up our discussion about the different tools that you can use to play Dungeons & Dragons in an online format. Now, I'm sure some of you have questions, as this is just a general overview. So if you do have questions, or if you want to actually see me live stream on Twitch or YouTube, so that way we can have this continuing dialogue about the different tools you can use, or just general campaign advice or anything else Dungeons & Dragons, make sure you leave a comment down here in the comment section. Also, if you've made it to the end of the video, make sure you like it for me, just so I know that you guys are interested in this kind of content. And then also make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, so that way you know when the next videos come out that could actually help you in your game. Now, again, I really hope that everyone's staying safe while we kind of deal with this COVID-19 pandemic. I hope that you and your family are staying safe. But again, like I said, this game is amazing and it can be kind of escape for everybody. So if you need any help or you need any suggestions or anything like that, I'm here and I'm open to anything that you guys need. And until next time, everyone, I'll see you all soon.